Did Shigaraki just reject All For One's help? I mean, hey, I dig it. I like that he's doing things on his own, but wow. What's up? It's Truth Hero, and welcome back to another My Hero Academia chapter review. So, Boku no Hero Academia chapter 287 in the manga. What a chapter. All For One gaining the memories, dreams, and consciousnesses of people whose quirks he takes, and then him preserving himself in Shigaraki. The battle of One For All inside the Vestige world, and Toga. What is she thinking? What is she up to? Let's dive in. The chapter opens with Shimura Nana in the Vestige world, and she says, "Even if we die, we'll meet again. All for one." All For One tells her, no, there's no All For One here. It's just Shigaraki. Then he tells Shigaraki to look over there. See that awesome dead person? That's your granny, the incompetent and poor Shimura Nana. I know All For One and Shimura Nana were enemies in the past, but I don't think you have to be that rude. I mean, he always calls her incompetent, and maybe he says this about everyone that's not All Might, but still, you'd think that there was some other bad blood between them. Maybe he's just trying to rub it in her face that, hey, not only are you incompetent and so poor, I also got your grandson working for me. We get this long monologue from All For One here that says, before, the personalities and preferences of people who receive organ transplants could change, but most of them were dismissed as people who talked about occult stuff or supernatural occurrences. Still, some cases have been reported. Go on. Sometimes I had strange dreams, the dreams of the heroes whose quirks I had taken away. Every time I'd get discouraged like the others and wondered if I was having feelings of guilt. Oh my god, okay. Now All For One has a moral compass because he has some dreams from people he stole quirks from. Get out of here. Of course he doesn't, but he goes on to say that if you then release the quirk from your possession or transfer it back to the original user or someone else, then the hero or the person that previously owned the quirk does stop showing up in your dreams, but they probably show up in the next person who has it. All For One just confirmed what we sort of suspected, in that if you transfer a quirk, it will contain the previous holder's memories, dreams, and even a part of their consciousness. We already knew it could contain memories from Shimura Nana because she says how romantic that we get to see each other in another life, but their dreams or even a real piece of their mind? And it's not just All For One or One For All quirks. Remember, All For One said that he took many heroes' quirks and got many of these dreams and memories. So every single quirk in My Hero Academia has the potential, if transferred or shared, to contain some of the original holders', we'll say subconscious, because that encompasses memories, dreams, and their thought process. Quirks really are like someone's DNA. They are unique to an individual, and even if separated, contain their unique identity. I wonder if someone out there has some of Deku's memories. But it's no wonder that All For One can communicate with Shigaraki. Shigaraki has the original All For One quirk, and thus some of All For One's memories, dreams, and part of his subconscious within him. Not to mention, I'm sure Shigaraki received numerous body modifications in his procedure, blood transfusions, organ transplants, potentially this tissue coming from All For One himself in parts that he's sort of left aside before he was arrested for Shigaraki with the doctor. Also, it would make sense because Gigantomachia in a previous chapter could smell his master, or two masters, that being Shigaraki and All For One. Maybe it's not that Gigantomachia has some heightened senses and he can sense All For One's presence within Shigaraki, but maybe All For One really transplanted some of his organs into Shigaraki, and Gigantomachia is literally smelling All For One's body parts. Which sounds really gross now that I think about it. Like, ah yes, it's Master's stomach and lungs. All For One continues speaking about how weird this phenomena is, and says he met with Dr. Ujiko and discovered the cause of all this. Basically, if cell memory can dictate how an organ performs in a body, then the same is sort of true about a person's memories within their quirk and how that quirk will react in someone else's body. I'm guessing that the quirks from the heroes that All For One took weren't happy to be within him and maybe gave him some nightmares. Also, All For One is a very strong presence, and his quirk is very strong and allows him to touch the consciousness of another person if he or his quirk is in their body. It's more of a medical science fiction explanation as to why All For One can interfere in Shigaraki's thoughts and even in what he does. And it's also the reason why the Vestiges can interfere in what Deku does. This is why them having a strong presence in the quirk One For All were able to move Deku's fingers and free him from Shinso's brainwashing. Do you guys like the reasoning and explanation behind this? I do, because I've always kind of hated the fact that Deku has this whole supernatural, magical avatar state explanation for why the Vestiges can do what they want. I mean, let me be clear, I like Avatar, but that's its own series. I've always viewed My Hero Academia as more, rule structured. Sure, having superpowers is, the fantasy element of it, but it's always had regulations, and Deku always sort of fell outside those because of this Vestige thing. Now that we have this more medical science fiction explanation for it, I like that Deku can communicate with the Vestiges and Shigaraki can communicate with All For One more than I did previously. It grounds the theory more, and it makes Deku feel like he's an approachable character, and not just, well, he's the MC, he has something that no one else has. But let me know what you guys think. Comment below. Does the whole cell memory to organ transplant as a parallel to quirk transfer and consciousness lingering theory work for you guys in explaining why the Vestiges and All For One can do what they do inside people's minds? Next, we have Shigaraki coming to more consciousness here, and he thinks Shimura Nana, and Gran Torino saying, "Don't trample on her heart." Why, grandmother? Why you? Imagine doing the most evil stuff and then seeing your grandmother, your deceased grandmother, mind you, poor old Mima, who's just looking at you thinking, "Oh, so you're my grandson." Not a good look. All For One also confirms that his younger brother is also able to interfere with the consciousness of people who have his quirk, One For All, aka Deku. This has become a hidden way to carry on their consciousness to the next generation. Basically, if they keep passing on the quirks, they could live forever. Shimura Nana then realizes that Shigaraki is Kotaro's kid. I kind of forgot that Shimura Nana never really knew Shigaraki, or even that her son had a son. I mean, she was already dead. But Shigaraki looks at his grandmother and says, "Don't worry, Grandma. I'm sure you have your reasons for hatred as well." "No, Shigaraki. No. It's just you." Tomura then shouts, "One For All is being eroded," as he releases a decay wave, and All For One is cheering him on. "Yes, I love this hatred and malice within you." And then he's like, oh dear, I forgot that he hates even me too, and this sort of consciousness of All For One starts to disintegrate. Yes! Look, regardless of where you stand on Shigaraki, if you think he's a fully fledged villain, or if you think he's still immature and needs to convince you of his motives, we can all agree that this is the best plan for Shigaraki, doing it by himself. Even if he fails, okay? It's his time to sink or swim. Shut up, sensei. I'm gonna do me now. I'm gonna do this my way. If I fail, then I fail my way. I can't rely on you anymore. And he rejects All For One in this moment. Beautiful. But who shows up to stop this decay wave from reaching Deku? Why, it's of course All For One's younger brother, the first user. Number one, he's a handsome dude. Just saying. But number two, who'd you expect to show up? The battle for Deku and his quirk has now begun. Let's jump into this one. All For One's younger brother says, "We will not be going to Tomura's side. We have chosen to reside within this child, Deku." All For One says this is a mistake, but his little brother rebukes him saying, "No, Deku is always thinking about saving others. He is the right choice." This is awesome because not only do we see the consciousness of the Vestiges, Shimura Nana, and the original user reject this power from All For One, But also they confirm that Deku is the right choice to have this quirk. There's no more debate about Mirio or someone else. The other cool thing is we are seeing in action how One For All cannot be taken by force by anyone else, no matter how much power they have. Now I'm wondering if it could have been taken if Shigaraki lended his power to All For One, because he, as we'll see, doesn't really do that here. But this is really cool that we get to see that whole DNA lock where they say, nope, it has to be passed on voluntarily. Really like how this wraps up here. We have Deku and Shigaraki being pulled out of the Vestige world, and Deku notes that quirks are tied to the user's bodies, like we see in the explanation All For One gave. And right now, Shigaraki just can't use any of his power because he has no energy left, and the quirks probably didn't settle in his body the right way anyway. Deku tells Shigaraki, please, just don't move. Even if you retreat from here, that's heroic in itself. Is Deku trying to save Shigaraki right now? I mean, we thought he'd pull something like this, but he just tells him, look, if you surrender, that will be heroic. You would have rejected All For One, and that might in itself be redeeming enough. Do you guys like this? I personally love it. Yes, they're gonna have to capture Shigaraki. He's still evil, he's done so many horrible things. But the fact that Shigaraki did something on his own and rejected All For One, I know it's not gonna count on the police report. I know the people that lost their lives aren't going to care about that. But Shigaraki could have been way more evil today than he chose to be. I mean, he still might fight the heroes right now. But I like the idea that Shigaraki is open to change and not just following this path of All For One. But let me know. Let me know what you guys think of Shigaraki now and how you feel about him after he did not lend All For One his power. Comment down below. The chapter ends with a flash to the League of Villains wondering if Hero Society has been torn down and how Shigaraki fared against Endeavor. But what's really interesting here is Toga. Back when Toga disguised herself as Kami like 150 chapters ago, she asked Deku, so will you save everyone? To what lengths will you go as a hero? Something along those lines. And she never got an answer. She has this same question today, and she says, I want to hear it straight from Ochako and Deku-kun. To what lengths will you go as a hero? Will everything really be okay? And this has prompted me to think, does Toga kind of want the heroes to win? Hear me out. We know that Toga likes a thrill. She obviously has a thing for Ochako and definitely likes Deku, especially all bloodied up. Yes, she's crazy. But we should remember that she's still a young girl, and she hasn't really decided on what she wants. She first liked Stain, and now she wants to tear down Hero Society. But what if something else comes along that gives her a bigger thrill? She knows how powerful Shigaraki is and her fellow team members on the League of Villains, but what if the heroes can outlast them and say, no, nothing is going to happen, everything is going to be okay. That could be more of a thrill and adventure for Toga than anything she's done up until this point. What if Toga then says, hey, the heroes are more thrilling and I'll join them, or I'll maybe fight against them, but I'm not going to do this whole League of Villain thing anymore. Anyway, that's what I got. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. I want to hear your theories. What is Toga-chan thinking? And will Shigaraki move anymore? Also, how do you feel about this whole All For One quirk transplant theory? If you guys like My Hero Academia content and these chapter reviews, consider enrolling at UA today by subscribing. And until next time, hero or villains, plus ultra.
Ishigaki